More naval action with us today. We're going to do episode 2 of A Letter to the King. Those of you who didn't see episode 1, it's basically an attempt to report and cover the ebb and flow of PvP on the Euro PvP1 server. There was enough positive feedback from the first one to encourage me to do a second one. Just a reminder, I'm just a member of a clan. The clan is probably a medium-sized clan over on PvP1. I don't direct any combat. I don't have any secret powers to make decisions or anything along those lines. I'm just a punter in a ship working with his clan for the king. This update, like them all, will be a little bit sort of British, through British eyes. There's not much choice about that really, because I'm with the British clan, so I can't see exactly what's going on elsewhere. So this is from intelligence and supposition. So this was the state of the Caribbean and surrounding areas as of last report, which was about a week or so ago. And there was a fair amount of biffing with the French going on around here, and the Spanish around here. The Danes were harrying folks around this neck of the woods. So were the pirates. The pirates and the Americans were having a bit of a biff up here. And there was a bit of stuff going on down here with the Swedes in the corners. So let's have a look at what's been happening this week. So first of all, the Brits and the French slugged it out from Panama to Mexico. And there was a massive push by the British at the start of the week that pretty much resulted in the French being pushed all the way out of the sort of South American region just to the... so they only held... well, they held no ports actually at one point. They almost held no ports at one point until their love partners, the Spanish, actually ceded 2 ports to them. They let the French grab a port here, and they let the French grab a port here in a sort of love-cuddle arrangement, which somewhat irked the British. And no sooner had the 2 of them buddied up and set themselves up with a port here, and I think the French had this port here, then mass attack took place on the Brits. 3 nights running there were attempts to retake from really Jupa, which is around here, all the way down to Truxillo. And on 2 or 3 nights there were 5 or 6 flags going up simultaneously, and some huge battles. 50, 75 ships involved in 3 port defences concurrently. At one point the French bought 5 flags just to fake an attack on 1 port in a diversion effort, which at the end of the day just diverted hundreds of thousands of gold into buying flags that were never planted. At the same time as these attacks were going on, there was a whole bunch of massive open sea battles, especially around this area here, and probably towards the end of the week. Estimates were that the Spanish had lost over 100 ships of 3rd rate and higher, and the French had probably lost 3/4 of that trying to take ports down this line here. And had many ships captured as a result, either as part of the action itself or subsequently as they tried to flee failed sea battles. So not one attack in this area here was successful. And indeed, at the closing of the weekend, the French were completely pushed out of the Yucatan, and the darling Spanish gave them a port on the south side of Cuba, which the British responded to rather over-aggressively, one could say, by capping pretty much every port around it, be it Spanish or pirate, sorry, pirates, but you know, 'tis the way. And very much the message was sent out that if you harbour the French in a harbour, then the Brits will take your harbours. And we'll see how this develops, because now the French are completely out of this zone of conflict, and they're left biffing over here, and at time of reporting had one lonesome port which is now surrounded by 6 British ports. That port itself was quite funny in that it got captured. There was actually a British blockade, but a cutter or a trader got through with the flag and managed to plant the flag, and then there was enough ships and pirates and Spanish helping to screen. So that was a huge bit of biffo, and to be honest, it's never boring being British. You're being attacked on 3 or 4 fronts simultaneously. I was involved in 6 harbour defences myself, or captures. I'm in a smaller ship, so I'm sailing trinks in PvP at the moment, and so quite often I'd be in a screening force. I did a couple of shallow harbours, and I also chased down a couple of flags to kill the flag carrier. And then the other fun thing to do, if you're not big enough to get into a port defence for a deep water port, the other fun thing to do is, as the fight comes to an end, the losing side, often referred to as the French or Spanish, try to flee. And as they flee the port, you can pick them off one at a time and capture yourself or kill some third rates, which is very pleasurable. I have to say, irrespective of death or glory, it was a fantastic week's fun all up and down this strip. Never ending biffo. And it wasn't just the Spanish and the French that were bringing it. There was more happening, and I'll come to that. Now, one of the results we spoke about at the end of the last report was that with the French being pushed predominantly out of this area, it basically meant, well, what's going to happen over here, where they're wedged in between the Swedes and the Danes and the Dutch? Well, really, the bad news was, pardon me, the bad news was for the Swedes, it meant they got their pants kicked, and they got their pants kicked with 2 different boots on. The French were eating them north and south, and the Dutch completely pushed them off the north coast here of South America, and have pretty much purged this whole area now. And I can't remember off the top of my noggin, I've got it at the end of the report, but the poor old Swedes, they're down to about 10 ports now. So they're going to have to buckle down and work out who to buddy up with and who to push out with. So while this was happening along the southern coast, what else was going on? So our friends the Danes, now there's rumours, and it is little more than scuttlebutt, but there are rumours that the Danes, 1 or 2 of their larger clans have gone to the Spanish. Probably not the best time to do it, because they'll all be scrubbing around in little ships, and the Spanish corps won't have been able to lend them too many ships, given the fact they were all getting sunk. But in the previous week, the Danes did an awful lot of hassling around Jamaica proper. And at one point they actually lost, I think this is Tiburon, they lost Tiburon, and the pirates managed to snaffle it back off the British, so the British took Tib, and then I think the pirates took it back, not the Danes. But what the Danes did do is they tried to do what I'm going to call a cascade. You'll see why in a moment. They, like I say, they had a bit of a biff and they lost Tiburon, but then they pushed in down here to Serena, which is a shallow water port, and it's a 50-minute sail down to Serena. And tragically, the locals around Port Royal, who were all pottering around doing some missions and trading and AI fleeting, they didn't come and help. Now, this was all happening at the same time as the best part of 170 ships were involved in a 6-port battle all the way along Panama and Honduras and the Yucatan. So the major clans, if you like, were all stretched to their utmost here, and I think something like 2 ships travelled down and got spanked by the Danes at Serena. And there was great calls in British chat to help at Serena, but sadly they fell on deaf ears. And this is a bit of a rallying cry. Now, it's not just to the British. This would be true of the Spanish in this neck of the woods, and the pirates around here, and the Danes along their borders. If you're not part of a clan and you're not part of an organised action, that's completely okay. You're more than welcome. The game more than welcomes you to do your own thing, to just play with a couple of buddies, go around capping ships, do a bit of trading, and so on and so forth. However, when there are calls in your nation's chat to help, it's really a good idea to heed them, and this is why. The Danes take here, they can then easily take here and here, and all of a sudden all that happy pottering that's going on around Port Royal is going to be infested with ganking and biffo. And of course I'm saying this would be true for other nations too, so keep an eye on your nation's chat. It's an opportunity to get involved in PvP. Especially these islands that were attacked here are all shallow water ports, so you can get involved with a merc or a navy brig, so on and so forth, any shallow water vessel. It's a good opportunity in a smaller ship to have a go at PvP and port battles. Now, at the moment the port battles are very coarse-grained. They're deep water, and to be honest, if your nation can stack third rates and above, that's what you want in there. Or they're shallow water, which is up to a Serb, which does leave a lot of people in 5th and 4th rates kind of in a never-never. That's where I am at the moment. But there's heaps of fun to be had. You can jump into the shallow ports, get involved in some action. People will tell you how it works. It's all pretty simple. I'm going to do a video on port battles, which 2 weeks after I'm sure will be redundant because I'll have changed it all. But fundamentally the rules are, when you hear an enemy nation has taken a flag out, they have 1 hour to get it to the port. They can only take the flag out at certain times. They have 1 hour to get it to the port. Then you'll hear that the conquest has begun, and you then have 40 minutes to join the battle. It's a good chance then to check your nation chat, find out if there's defenders going, find out if you can help screening or help in the defense itself. So screening means you try to intercept the incoming fleet, which would be this fleet here, and draw as many of them into combat as possible, and ideally draw the flag carrier into combat and kill them. I was involved in a flag cap down towards, I can't remember what it was, Chingawingadinga, something around here, midweek, where we actually captured the flag carrier and sunk him, and it felt jolly good. And I was only in a farty little Bell pool, I think, but 5 or 6 people in Bell pools can mess up a third rate. So you can go in as a screening force, or you can jump into the port battle itself. You have 40 minutes to jump into the port battle. You just sail up to the port, there's cutlasses there, tells you how many are in, you click on it. And for the enemy to win the port battle, they have to destroy all 3 towers in a shallow port, or 5 towers in a deep port, and they have to have a 2-to-1 battle rating over the enemy. So each ship has a battle rating. If you have 10 ships of the same battle rating, let's say it's 100, both sides will have 1,000. They would have to whittle the defenders down to below 500 while retaining 1,000 battle rating. So jump in. I'll do a video on port battles. I've already got a couple up on where you can see port defences, but I'll talk more specifically about how people buy flags, carrying flags, stopping the flag, getting the flag in, and then the best way to execute or defend a port battle. After the pesky Danes took Serena, they then moved in and took Mosquito Cay, which was, at the time, it was right in the middle of the battles up here, and quite simply defence couldn't get there in time. Where most of the defence was more than an hour's sail, and it was at a timer, which meant we were thin on numbers on this coast anyway. And I don't know if this has been taken back. I haven't checked in the last few hours, but if it's not, it opens up a really frightening beachhead. Even though it's a shallow water port, you can still buy the flags, and if they're prepared to sail a fleet down, and if they've got enough people to do it, if the rumours are true they've gone to Spanish, this could be trouble at mill for the Brits on this flank. What was really nice to see was, though, then the Danes got all excited and they tried to take Bugle and Bone Cay, and that's when just the rallying cry went up amongst the folks who are normally just doing their stuff and things around Port Royal. They went down, I think it was Bone Cay first, and just about defended it. Ships were trickling in one at a time until we had equal numbers, and then finally superiority, and the Danes were given a spanking. And then because that went so well, when the other Cay was attacked, Bugle Cay or Bone Cay, I can't remember the sequence, lots of people went down. The infection of winning had spread, and a few more people confident about playing in Port Bells. So it doesn't matter if you're British or French. Well, it does matter if you're French. If you're British or Spanish or pirate or American or Dane or Dutch or whatever, keep an eye on your nation chat and see if you can get involved in helping. It's great fun, and it's really what a PvP server's all about. So what else was going on? The Brits retook Serena and has left the Danes at last, reporting with Mosquito Cay. Now, the pirates last week were really causing mayhem all around this neck of the woods and around here, but they focused as much as a loose rabble can ever do. They focused their attention, maybe it's because it's spring break and they wanted to go on holiday, but they focused their attention on the Americas. So this section really covers what were the USA up to and what were the pirates up to. And fundamentally, the pirates were giving the Americans a shellacking all along the coast of Florida. And they ended up snatching, I think by the close of business, about 8 or 9 new ports. And that's going to be a real challenge for the USA to get back into that. They have clung on to a couple of ports around here. But the USA are going to have to get their shiz together if they're going to push the pirates out. So what can we look forward to this week? Well, I hope if it's half as much fun as last week's PvP, it'll be more than worthwhile getting involved. There's the threat of the Danes down here in the sort of Honduras through to Panama neck of the woods. There's the conclusion of the British-Spanish wars up here in the Yucatan. Will the Spanish be able to push the British back, especially if they've got, as Scuttlebutt would suggest, some Danish reinforcements coming through? I personally think the Spanish are a little exhausted. The number of ships they lost last week was brutal. First rates, second rates, third rates. Like I say, 100 ships easily sent to the bottom. And the Spanish may be drawn to focus more heavily on the homeland here in Cuba, and the French making what might be a last stand. It's very difficult for them to push out here. They're close to the primary British hub. Maybe their Spanish friends will give them a port back over here, which is about an hour's carry. But it's an hour's carry that will be difficult. You're going through shallows, and the Brits will be looking for them. The Brits will be coming out here and coming out here looking for them. Clearly the Americans and the pirates are going to be getting the biff on up around Florida. I think at the moment the Americans, it's more of a holding action over this side, but I suspect this is where they'll be bringing the biff. And how will the French, the Swedes and the Danes go down here? What will the Dutch do now that they've emptied out most of the ports in this neck of the woods? There's still a couple to go, and then there's the Frenchies down here. Will there still be quiet in this area? Who knows? So an extra section I'm adding to His Majesty's report is the Book of Tally, the Book of Splinters, Sail and Blood. So this will show us relatively how each nation has performed week on week. So let's start from the bottom. The poor old Swedes, down to 9 ports, took an absolute shellacking. 9 ports is interesting. Once you start getting to that few, you're going to have ability to start defending them all because they're all close to each other. So they might have reached rock bottom, as it were. The Spanish are paying the price for allying with the French, and that'll be a lesson to anyone who allies with the French. although they may be bolstered in a week or so if it's true about these the Danish clans moving over there, because they'll start shipping up pretty soon. The French, they took a net deficit after being biffed out of the South America to Yucatan space. The Danes more or less held their numbers. They lost a port here, gained a port there, much quieter than in the previous report. The Dutch did some cleaning up around South America. The Americans had a bit of a catastrophe in Florida, as we've seen. British stocks are on the rise after getting rid of the French and giving the Spanish a good biffing. I do think a number of the ports they took towards the end of the week are more strategic and not intended as long-term around Cuba and Spain, but we'll see. Cuba held Spain. And the pirates are on the up and up. They hold most ports amongst us all. And it's interesting, they do tend at the moment to have the luxury of being the aggressors, and no one's really piling into them. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And that is it for Letter to the King episode 2. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to get your comments. I had a few comments while I was sailing around, which made me smile. That was really good. And a few comments after episode 1. So I'd love to get your comments. Get me to focus on a few topics. I'm just going to touch on one topic before I sign off. And there's been a lot of QQ, and people call it toxicity. You don't know what toxicity is, man. You've only been a few of the other games kicking around. About port timers. And here, in my opinion, is the giggity-doo. It's a world game. Fundamentally, you've got 3 primary time zones with the Americans, Europeans, and Oceanic players. And most clans have people, or many clans have people in all of those time zones. When you take a port, you take a port in a timer that was set by its owner. And if you take that port, you can then set the timer in your favor. And that is fair enough. Now, you should set the timer as best as you can defend it. Now, you might choose a time that's bad for the nation who might want to get it back, or you might choose a timer that's good for your prime time coverage. They may be the same things, but you really have to think of it as a home and away type deal. When you lose a port, it's now an away game, and it's harder. It's not fair, and it shouldn't be fair. War isn't about being fair. War is about making a strategic position that gives you an advantage. And then the other thing is, keep your eyes on chat, guys, because your nation needs you. And as my grandma always used to say, if everybody leaves action to anybody, anybody will always expect somebody to do it, and somebody will always give that task to nobody. So if you hear a cry for help in your nation chat, it's your duty, and the king expects. Thank you very much. I will see you on the oceans, and I will catch you.